Hi everyone! We are back with chapter 4 of Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth. I am very glad that you guys have joined me in this amazing journey, and now we are going in the maze together, I assume. I haven't read further, so you are seeing the raw and live reactions from me. So yes, I do not pre-read this. I read it when I record this for more authenticness. And as we know that to go further in the video, you have to like, share and subscribe, so do that. Let's get started. So Percy and Annabeth both found the gate of not the gate but a passageway into the camp of the labyrinth. Okay, let me rephrase that. Percy and Annabeth found the labyrinth gate, which opens right in the camp, and if Luke would find that, he would invade the camp and would kill every single one of the half-bloods if they do not join him. And so to save them, there is a chance that they need to finish the labyrinth, and this is just an assumption. I think they should finish the labyrinth and maybe find a chance of how to defeat Luke and his weird army of Chronos. So we are on chapter 4, so let's get started. Chapter 4. Annabeth breaks the rules. Yeesh. If Annabeth has to break the rules, something very serious happened. Chiron had insisted we talk about it in the morning, which was kind of like, hey, your life's in mortal danger. Sleep tight. It was hard to fall asleep, but when I finally did, I dreamed of a prison. I saw a boy in Greek tunic and sandals crouching alone in a massive stone room. The ceiling was open to the night sky, but the walls were 7 meters high and polished marble completely smooth. Scattered around the room were wooden crates. Some were cracked and tipped over as if they'd been flung in there. Bronze tools spilled out of one, a compass, a saw, and a bunch of other things I didn't recognize. The boy huddled in the corner, shivering from cold, or maybe fear, was spattered in mud. His legs, arms, and face were scraped up as if he'd been dragged here along with the boxes. Then the double oak doors moaned open. 2 guards in bronze armor marched in, holding an old man between them. They flung him to the door, up in a battered heap. Father! The boy ran to him. The man's robes were in tatters. His hair was streaked with grey, and his beard was long and curly. His nose had been broken, his lips were bloody. The boy took the old man's head in his arms. What did they do to you? Then he yelled at the guards. I'll kill you! There will be no killing today, a voice said. The guards moved aside. Behind them stood a tall man in white robes. He wore a thin circlet of gold on his head. His beard was pointed like a spear blade. His eyes glittered cruelly. You helped the Athenian kill my Minotaur, Daedalus. You turned my own daughter against me. You did that yourself, your majesty, the old man croaked. The guard planted a kick in the old man's ribs. He groaned in agony. The young boy cried, Stop it! You love your maze so much. I have decided to let you stay here. The king said, This will be your workshop. Make me new wonders. Amuse me. Every maze needs a monster. You shall be mine. I don't fear you, the old man groaned. The king smiled coldly. He locked his eyes on the boy. But a man cares for his son, eh? Displease me, old man, and the next time my guards inflict a punishment, it will be on him. The king swept out of the room with his guards, and the door slammed shut, leaving the boy and his father alone in the darkness. What will we do? The boy moaned. Father, they will kill you. The old man swallowed with difficulty. He tried to smile, but it was a gruesome sight with his bloody mouth. Take heart, my son. I will find a way. He gazed up at the stars. A bar lowered across the doors with a fatal boom, and I woke up in a cold sweat. I was still feeling shaky the next morning when Chiron called a war council. We met in the SWAT arena, which I thought was pretty strange, trying to discuss the fate of the camp while Mrs. O'Leary chewed on a life-size squeaky pink rubber yak. Chiron and Quintus stood at front of the weapon racks. Clarice and Annabeth sat next to each other and led the briefing. Tyson and Grover sat as far away from each other as possible. Also present around the table, Juniper the tree nymph, Selina Beauregard, Travis and Connor Stoll, Beckendorf, Lee Fletcher, even Argus, our 100-eyed security chief. That's how I knew it was serious. Argus hardly ever shows up unless something really major is going on. The whole time Annabeth spoke, he kept his 100 blue eyes trained on her so hard, his whole body turned bloodshot. Luke must have known about the labyrinth entrance. He knew everything about camp, Annabeth said. I thought I heard a little pride in her voice, like she still respected the guy, as evil as he was. Percy, you're just being jealous. Juniper cleared her throat. That's what I was trying to tell you last night. The cave entrance has been there a long time. Luke used to use it. You knew about the labyrinth entrance and you didn't say anything? Selina Beauregard frowned. Juniper's face turned green. I didn't know it was important. Just a cave. I don't like yucky old caves. She has good taste, Grover said. I wouldn't have paid any attention except, well, it was Luke. She blushed a little greener. Grover huffed. Forget what I said about good taste. Interesting. Quintus polished his sword as he spoke. And you believe this young man, Luke, would dare use the labyrinth as an invasion route? Definitely, Clarice said. If he could get an army of monsters inside Camp Half-Blood just pop up in the middle of the woods without having to worry about our magical boundaries, we wouldn't stand a chance. He could wipe us out easy. He must have been planning this for months. He'd been sending scouts into the maze, Annabeth said. We knew because we found one. Chris Rodriguez. He gave Quintus a meaningful look. Ah, the one in the... Yes, I understand. The one in the what? I asked. Clarice glared at me. The point is, Luke has been looking for a way to navigate the maze. He's been searching for Daedalus' workshop. I remembered my dream the night before. The bloody old man in tattered robes. The guy who created the maze. Yes, Annabeth said. The greatest architect. The greatest inventor of all time. If the legends are true, his workshop is in the center of the labyrinth. He's the only one who knew how to navigate the maze perfectly. If Luke managed to find a workshop and convince Daedalus to help him, Luke wouldn't have to fumble around searching for parts or risk losing his army in the maze's traps. He could navigate anywhere he wanted, quickly and safely, first to Camp Half-Blood to wipe us out, then to Olympus. The arena was silent except for Mrs. O'Leary's toy yak getting disemboweled. Squeak, squeak. Finally, Beckendorf put his huge hands on the table. Back up a sec. Annabeth, you said convince Daedalus. Isn't Daedalus dead? Quintus grunted. I would hope so. He lived, 3,000 years ago? And even if he were alive, don't the old stories say he fled from the labyrinth? Chiron clopped restlessly on his hooves. That's the problem, my dear Quintus. No one knows. There are rumors. Well, there are many disturbing rumors around Daedalus, but one is that he disappeared back into the labyrinth towards the end of his life. He might still be down there. I thought about the old man I'd seen in my dreams. He looked so frail, it was hard to believe he'd last another week, much less 3,000 years. We need to go in. Annabeth announced. We have to find the workshop before Luke does. If Daedalus is alive, we convince him to help us, not Luke. If Ariadne's string still exists, we make sure it never falls into Luke's hands. Wait a second. If we were worried about an attack, why not just blow up the entrance? Seal the tunnel, I said. Great idea, I'll get the dynamite, Grover said. It's not easy, stupid, Clarice growled. We tried that at the entrance we found in Phoenix. It didn't go well. Annabeth nodded. Labyrinth is magical architecture, Percy. It would take huge power to seal even one of its entrances. In Phoenix, Clarice demolished a whole building with a wrecking ball, and the maze entrance just shifted a few meters. The best we can do is prevent Luke from learning to navigate the labyrinth. We could fight, Lee Fletcher said. We know where the entrance is now. We can set up a defensive line and wait for them. If an army tries to come through, they'll find us waiting with our bows. We will certainly set up defenses, Chiron agreed. But I feel Clarice is right. The magical borders have kept this camp safe for hundreds of years. If Luke manages to get a large army of monsters into the center of camp, bypassing our boundaries, we may not have the strength to defeat them. Nobody looked very happy about the news. Chiron usually tried to be upbeat and optimistic, but if he was predicting we couldn't hold off an attack, that wasn't good. We have to get to Daedalus' workshop first, Annabeth insisted. Find Ariadne's string and prevent Luke from using it. But if nobody can navigate in there, what chance do we have? I've been studying architecture for years, she said. I know Daedalus' labyrinth better than anybody. From reading about it? Well, yes. That's not enough. It has to be. It isn't. Are you going to help me or not? I realized everyone was watching Annabeth and me like a tennis match. Mrs. O'Leary's squeaky yak went eek as she ripped off its pink rubber head. Chiron cleared his throat. They were having just a lover's tiff. First things first, we need a quest. Someone must enter the labyrinth, find the workshop of Daedalus, and prevent Luke from using the maze to invade the camp. We all know who should lead this. Annabeth, Clarice said. There was a murmur of agreement. I knew Annabeth had been waiting for her own quest since she was a little kid, but she looked uncomfortable. You've done as much as I have, Clarice. You should go too, she said. Clarice shook her head. I am not going back in there. Travis Stolz laughed. Don't tell me you're scared, Clarice. Chicken? Clarice got to her feet. I thought she was going to pulverize Travis, but she said in a shaky voice, You don't understand anything, punk. I'm never going in there again. Never. She stormed out of the arena. Travis looked around sheepishly. I didn't mean to. Chiron raised his hand. The poor girl has had a difficult year. Now, do we have agreement that Annabeth should lead the quest? We all nodded except Quintus. He folded his arms and stared at the table, but I wasn't sure anyone else noticed. Very well. Chiron turned to Annabeth. My dear, it's your time to visit the oracle. Assuming you return to us in one piece, we shall discuss what to do next. Waiting for Annabeth was harder than visiting the oracle myself. I'd heard it speak prophecies twice before. The first time I had been in the dusty attic of the big house where the spirit of Delphi slept inside the body of a mummified hippie lady. The second time, the oracle had come out for a little stroll in the woods. I still had nightmares about that. I'd never felt threatened by the oracle's presence, but I'd heard stories. Campers who'd gone insane or who'd seen visions so real they died of fear. I paced the arena waiting. Mrs. O'Leary ate her lunch, which consisted of 50 kilograms of ground beef and several dog biscuits the size of a trash can lids. I wondered where Quintus got dog biscuits that size. I didn't think you could just walk into Pet Zone and put those in your shopping cart. Chiron was deep in conversation with Quintus and Argus. It looked to me like they were disagreeing about something. Quintus kept shaking his head. On the other side of the arena, Tyson and Stoll brothers were racing miniature bronze chariots that Tyson had made out of armor scraps. I gave up on pacing and left the arena. I stared across the fields at the big house's attic window, dark and motionless. What was taking Annabeth so long? I was pretty sure it hadn't taken me this long to get my quest. Percy, a girl whispered. Juniper was standing in the bushes. It was weird how she almost turned invisible when she was surrounded by plants. She gestured me over urgently. You need to know. Luke wasn't the only one I saw around that cave. What do you mean? I was trying to say something, but he was right there. She glanced back at the arena. Who? The sword master. He was poking around the rocks, she said. Quintus? When? My stomach clenched. I don't know. I don't pay attention to time. Maybe a week ago when he first showed up. What was he doing? Did he go in? I'm not sure. He's creepy, Percy. I didn't even see him come into the glade. Suddenly he was just there. You have to tell Grover it's too dangerous. Juniper? Where did you go? Grover called from inside the arena. Juniper sighed. I'd better go in. Just remember what I said. Don't trust that man. She ran into the arena. I stared at the big house, feeling more uneasy than ever. If Quintus was up to something, I needed Annabeth's advice. See, I told you way before. I found Quintus very shady. Someone to just appear out of nowhere. I do not doubt Mrs. O'Leary. She is the goodest dog ever. But this Quintus character is definitely up to something. And maybe the clue of him is in Percy's dream that he had. She might know what to make of Juniper's news. But where the heck was she? Whatever was happening with the oracle, it shouldn't be taking this long. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. It was against the rules. But then again, nobody was watching. I ran down the hill and headed across the fields. The front parlor of the big house was strangely quiet. I was used to seeing Dionysus by the fireplace, playing cards and eating grapes and gripping at satyrs, but Mr. D was still away. I walked down the hallway, floorboards squeaking under my feet. When I got up to the base of the stairs, I hesitated. 4 floors above would be a little trap door leading to the attic. Annabeth would be up there somewhere. I stood quietly and listened, but what I heard wasn't what I had expected. Sobbing, and it was coming from below me. I crept around the back stairs and the basement door was open. I didn't even know the big house had a basement. I peered inside and saw 2 figures in the far corner, sitting amid a bunch of stockpiled cases of ambrosia and strawberry preserves. One was Clarice. The other was a teenage Hispanic guy in tattered camouflage combats and a dirty black t-shirt. His hair was greasy and matted. He was hugging his shoulders and sobbing. It was Chris Rodriguez, the half-blood who'd gone to work for Luke. It's okay, Clarice was telling him. Try a little more nectar. You're an illusion, Mary. Chris backed further into the corner. Get away. My name's not Mary. Clarice's voice was gentle but really sad. I never knew Clarice could sound that way. My name is Clarice. Remember, please. It's dark, so dark, Chris yelled. Come outside. The sunlight will help you. 1,000 skulls. The earth keeps healing him. Chris. Clarice pleaded. It sounded like she was close to tears. You have to get better, please. Mr. D will be back soon. He's an expert in madness. Just hang on. Chris's eyes were like a cornered rat's, wild and desperate. There is no way out, Mary. No way out. Then he caught a glimpse of me and made a strangled, terrified sound. The son of Poseidon. He is horrible. I backed away, hoping Clarice hadn't seen me. I listened for her to come charging out and yell at me, but instead she just kept talking to Chris in a sad, pleading voice, trying to get him to drink the nectar. Maybe she thought it was part of Chris's hallucination, but son of Poseidon, Chris had been looking for me, and yet why did I get the feeling he hadn't been talking about me at all? And Clarice's tenderness. It had never even occurred to me that she might like someone. But the way she said Chris's name, she'd known him before he changed sides. She'd known him a lot before than I'd realized. And now he was shivering in a dark basement, afraid to come out, and mumbling about someone named Mary. No wonder Clarice didn't want anything to do with the labyrinth. What had happened to Chris in there? I heard a creak from above, like the trapdoor opening, and I ran for the front door. I needed to get out of that house. My dear, Chiron said, you made it. I really need a minute. After reading Chris's after reading what Chris went through, it's not fair for anyone to go through that. That was horrible. You know, no matter what, no matter how bad you feel for Luke, what he did to Chris, what he's doing to other fellow half-bloods, not fair. Not fair at all. Annabeth walked into the arena. She sat on a stone bench and stared at the floor. Well, Quintus asked. Annabeth looked at me first. I couldn't tell if she was trying to warn me or if the look in her eyes was just plain fear. She focused on Quintus. I got the prophecy. I will lead the quest to find Daedalus' workshop. Nobody cheered. I mean, we all liked Annabeth and we wanted her to have a quest, but this one seemed insanely dangerous. After what I'd seen of Chris Rodriguez, I didn't even want to think about Annabeth descending into the weird maze again. Chiron scraped a hoof on the dirt floor. What did the prophecy say exactly, my dear? The wording is important. Annabeth took a breath. Well, it said, you shall dwell in the darkness of the endless maze. We waited. The dead, the traitor, and the lost one raise. The lost one? That must mean Pan. That's great. Grover perked up. With the dead and the traitor, I added. Not so great. And what is the rest? You shall rise or fall by the ghost king's hand. The child of Athena's final stand, Annabeth said. Everyone looked around uncomfortably. Annabeth was the daughter of Athena and a final stand didn't sound good. Hey, we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Annabeth isn't the only child of Athena, right? Selena said. But who's this ghost king? Beckendorf said. No one answered. I thought about the iris message I'd seen of Nico summoning spirits. I had a bad feeling the prophecy was connected to that. Are there any more lines? Chiron asked. The prophecy does not sound complete. I don't remember exactly. Annabeth hesitated. Chiron raised an eyebrow. Annabeth was known for her memory. She never forgot something she had heard. Annabeth shifted on her bench. Something about destroy with a hero's final breath. And Chiron asked, look, the point is, she stood. I have to go in. I'll find the workshop and stop Luke, and I need help. She turned to me. Will you come? I didn't even hesitate. I'm in. She smiled for the first time in days, and that made all worthwhile. Grover, you too? The wild god is waiting. Grover seemed to forget how much he hated the underground. The line about the lost one had completely energized him. I'll pack extra recyclables for snacks. And Tyson, I'll need you too, Annabeth said. Yay! Blow things up time. Tyson clapped so hard he woke up Mrs. O'Leary, who was dozing in the corner. Wait, Annabeth. This goes against the ancient laws. A hero is allowed only to companions, Chiron said. I need them all, she insisted. Chiron, it's important. I didn't know why she was so certain, but I was happy she'd included Tyson. I couldn't imagine leaving him behind. He was huge and strong and great at fighting out mechanical things. Unlike satyrs, Cyclops had no problem underground. Annabeth, Chiron flicked his tail nervously. Consider well. You would be breaking the ancient laws. There are always consequences. Last winter, 5 went on a quest to save Artemis. Only 3 came back. Think on that. 3 is a sacred number. There are 3 fates, 3 furies, 3 Olympian sons of Kronos. It is a good strong number that stand against many dangers. 4. This is risky. Annabeth took a deep breath. I know, but we have to. Please. I could tell Chiron didn't like it. Quintus was studying us like he was trying to decide which of us would come back alive. Chiron sighed. Very well. Let us adjourn. The members of the quest must prepare themselves. Tomorrow at dawn, we send you into the labyrinth. Quintus pulled me aside as the council was breaking up. I have a bad feeling about this, he told me. Mrs. O'Leary came over, wagging her tail happily. She dropped a shield at my feet, and I threw it for her. Quintus watched her romp after it. I remembered that what Juniper had said about him, scouting at the maze. I didn't trust him, but when he looked at me, I saw real concern in his eyes. I don't like the idea of you going down there, he said. Any of you. But if you must, I want you to remember something. The labyrinth exists to fool you. It will distract you. That's dangerous for half-bloods. We are easily distracted. You've been in there? Long ago. His voice was ragged. I barely escaped with my life. Most who enter aren't that lucky. Why do I think that that little boy in Percy's dream is Quintus? Just an assumption. Usually my assumptions are right in this story, so who knows. He gripped my shoulder. Percy, keep your mind on what matters most. If you do that, you might find the way. And here, I wanted to give you something. He handed me a little silver tube. It was so cold I almost dropped it. A whistle? I asked. A dog whistle for Mrs. O'Leary. Thanks, but how will it work in the maze? I am not 100% certain it will, but Mrs. O'Leary is a hellhound. She can appear when called, no matter how far away she is. I'd feel better knowing you had this. If you really need help, use it, but be careful. The whistle is made of Stygian ice. What ice? From the river Styx. Very hard to craft, very delicate. It cannot melt, but it will shatter when you blow it, so you can only use it once. Seriously, what is the point of having such a whistle when it is going to break once within a use? That's just bad marketing. I thought about Luke and my old enemy. Right before I'd gone on my first quest, Luke had given me a gift too. Magic shoes that had been designed to drag me to my death. Quintus seemed so nice, so concerned, and Mrs. O'Leary liked him, which had to count for something. She dropped the slimy shield at my feet and barked excitedly. I felt ashamed that I could even think about mistrusting Quintus, but then again, I trusted Luke once. Thanks, I told Quintus. I slipped the freezing whistle into my pocket, promising myself that I would never use it, and I dashed off to find Annabeth. As long as I'd been at camp, I'd never been inside the Athena cabin. It was a silvery building, nothing fancy, with plain white curtains and a carved stone owl over the doorway. The owl's onyx eyes seemed to follow me as I walked closer. Hello? I called inside. Nobody answered. I stepped in and caught my breath. The place was a workshop of brainiac kids. The bunks were all pushed against one wall as if sleeping doesn't matter very much. Most of the room was filled with workbenches and tables and sets of tools and weapons. The back of the room was a huge library crammed with old scrolls and leather bound books and paperbacks. There was an architect's distro- distorting table with a bunch of rulers and protractors and some 3D models of buildings. Huge old war maps were plastered to the ceiling. Sets of armor hung under the windows, their bronze plates glinting in the sun. Annabeth stood in the back of the room, rifling through old scroll. Knock, knock, I said. Oh, hi. I didn't hear you. She turned with a start. You okay? She frowned at the scroll in her hands. Just trying to do some research. The dialysis labyrinth is so huge, none of the stories agree with about anything. The maps just lead from nowhere to nowhere. I thought about what Quintus had said, how the maze tries to distract you. I wonder if Annabeth knew that already. We'll figure it out, I promised. Her hair had come loose and was hanging in a tangled blonde curtain around her face. Her grey eyes looked almost black. I wanted to lead a quest since I was 7, she said. You're going to be awesome. She looked at me gratefully, but then stared down at the books and scrolls she'd pulled from the shelves. I'm worried, Percy. Maybe I shouldn't have asked you to do this, or Tyson or Grover. Hey, we're your friends. We wouldn't miss it. But she stopped herself. What is it? The prophecy? I asked. I'm sure it's fine, she said in a small voice. What was the last line? Then she did something that really surprised me. She blinked back tears and put out her arms. I stepped forward and hugged her. Butterflies started turning my stomach into a mosh pit. Hey, it's okay. I patted her back. I was aware of everything in the room. I felt like I could read the tiniest print on any book on the shelves. Annabeth's hair smelled like lemon soap. She was shivering. Chiron might be right. I'm breaking the rules. But I don't know what else to do. I need you three. It just feels right, she muttered. Then don't worry about it, I managed. We've had plenty of problems before, and we've solved them. This is different. I don't want anything to happen to any of you. Behind me, somebody cleared his throat. It was one of Annabeth's half brothers, Malcolm. His face was bright red. Um, Sorry. Archery practice is starting, Annabeth. Chiron has said to come find you, he said. I stepped away from Annabeth. We were just looking at maps, I said stupidly. Malcolm stared at me. Okay. Tell Chiron I'll be right there, Annabeth said, and Malcolm left in a hurry. You go ahead, Percy. I'd better get ready for archery. She rubbed her eyes. I nodded, feeling more confused than I ever had in my life. I wanted to run from the cabin, but then again, I didn't. Annabeth, I said, about your prophecy. The last line about a hero's last breath. You're wondering which hero? I don't know. No, something else. I was thinking the last line usually rhymes with the one before it. Was it something about did it end with the word death? Annabeth stared down at the scrolls. You'd better go, Percy. Get ready for the quest. I'll see you in the morning. I left her there, staring at maps that led from nowhere to nowhere. But I couldn't shake the feeling that one of us wasn't going to come back from this quest alive. You know what? Since Tyson is going with them, this isn't going to end well for any of us. If I got emotional for Zoe Nightshade, I'm going to get emotional for Tyson as well. This is going to be such a disaster, and I'm not ready for this. I'm never ready for this. You see, this is why I'm unable to finish my books. I mean, I'm right there where I have to kill the character off, and I cannot. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to me. I will see you guys tomorrow with another chapter. I don't think I have the energy left to even comment about what just happened. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.